Alrighty, so we're back. How was Eastern Reign? That it was a time. I don't really remember if I like offered much thoughts on that daydream as a whole at the time, because it's been several days since I actually recorded that. Or the finale originally. I do think it's pretty cool. I mean, even if I ignore the part where I don't really like Rean getting bodied by someone, especially when they also make note of the fact that the someone is like younger than Rean, but also has way more experience and is so much cooler than him, because reasons, despite Rean having killed, you know, like 3 world-ending threats at this point in the storyline.
Slab of reminiscence activated.
But you know, it's whatever. Is it, I thought, weren't there 2 of them? I thought there were 2 of them. Because, yeah, there's like a selection screen in here, right? Okay. I was gonna say, I could have sworn there were 2 of them, but it didn't have a check mark too. Okay, I know. I don't know why they didn't just add them to the screens so you can pick both of them, but... yeah, an unconventional student, that's what we got. April, year 1208 of the Septian calendar. Armis Academy is a famous educational institution in the Calvardian capital of Edith. Edith? Edith? I'm gonna say Edith for now. I mean, Edith. Edith sounds better than it's better to me. So I'm gonna say that for now. But Edith, I think, is maybe how it's pronounced. The name derives from an artist central to Calvard's democratic revolution 100 years ago. The name is also reflected in its goal of nurturing new talent and helping to forge a brighter future for a new republic. Until they add voice acting, I can call whatever the hell I want. And even then, I'll sometimes still call whatever the hell I want. The Academy placed great value on traditional education, of course, but it also encouraged the perspectives of new cultures and values, attracting many an independent mind from across Lemuria. It was a storied place of learning that reflected the Republic's views as a whole. This story, for its part, begins not long after the Springtime Festival, held yearly to welcome the new student body. It was just another morning at the Academy's countless students shuffling through its grounds, when one of them in particular happened to draw an unusual amount of attention. The young lady had soft violet hair crowned with a black ribbon. Her figure had been cut very respectably as she matured into a young woman of 17 years, and yet her face still held traces of girlhood days bygone. The beauty she was, she never failed to turn inquisitive heads as she strolled along. Her name was Rin Bright. Okay, I was like, I kind of thought that's who that was, but I couldn't really tell if it was just generic. They look similar. He was a second-year student from Genus Royal Academy in Liberal, now studying at Armis as part of an exchange program. Okay, well, I think I mentioned at the start of this video how Rin felt like she still had lingering plot threads that would be relevant. Guess that's a confirmation. He only just arrived in the spring. Ren's goal in attending was not to further her education. She'd been considered highly gifted since she was a child. Why did they bring that back up, man? Oh my god. She had been considered highly gifted since she was a child, having already earned several doctorates in years past. But like, from who? You're telling me she went through the whole damn course curriculum? She's published? I don't buy it, alright? Being smart does not equal doctorates, okay? It doesn't matter how smart you are. It's a process that you can only cut down by so much. There was little more a new academy could reasonably teach her. Her goal in reality was to use it as a front to operate freely in Calvard. It was hard to find one better than being a student. She already found the role relatively foolproof during her time at Genus. If there were limits to how much a student can get away with, society as a whole was soft on school children. Do we not remember that the whole last arc was about sending school children into, like, war? Basically, in, like live fire combat situations? To move further would also require drawing as little attention as possible. She claimed to conduct herself modestly, or she aimed, as any elegant young lady who wished to remain unseen should during her time at Aramis. There was one very big problem with this plan. Good morning, Miss Bright. Isn't she just gorgeous? Look, I see her. She's so beautiful, and everyone says she's just as smart, too. All she had to do was walk down the hall to be showered with greetings and whispers of envy and admiration. Her looks alone were enough to make her the talk of the school, but after one of the teachers let slip that she received a perfect score on her entrance exam, there was suddenly not a single person who didn't know her name. The other students cared not much how much she wanted to avoid drawing attention, as she was getting it whether she liked it or not. Naturally, not everyone was pleased with the booming popularity of this new transfer student who had attained in less than a month. While most were busy fawning over Ren's arrival this morning, another group watched the charade unfold from the shadows, echoing audible tuts of displeasure. I do like these, like the style of these. Like the visual novel style, because I mean, you know, I'm a fan of visual novels. I've been out of the game for a long time. Haven't like read a pure visual novel in many years, but I was into them for a period of time. And you know, I've played a lot of visual novel adjacent stuff on the channel, things that like are basically visual novels, but they trick you into not thinking they're visual novels so that people, you know, actually buy them. So I mean, I like the format, and I think they work well. Like I honestly, I think a lot of the daydreams I would have preferred seeing them done in this style, because there's basically like you can do more with them, in the sense that obviously the main benefit of doing these in this style is you can show new locations that don't have to be like fully modeled and everything, and like new characters that didn't have that, you know, you can just kind of have like some brief like art of them. Now granted, I don't exactly know the like exactly how intensive it was to come up with like the art pieces for these little daydreams, like what the like if it's easier than actually, you know, modeling a new character or whatnot, or like what the actual differences would be. So like I don't know if these are necessarily easier to do than the others. I mean, I presume for a character, I mean, for anything that was already existed, it's easier to do like the in-engine stuff. But I do think these are a nice way to kind of do some things that aren't already in the games, right? Because that's probably the biggest problem with the daydreams and the way they did them, is that you're limited to exclusively old stuff, right? Which is one of the things that Sky 3 did well, is that it wasn't always limited to just locations that you've already seen. You know, there were several daydreams that were done in this style. Like obviously the, you know, main one is Ren's, is basically done in the visual novel format, and it works extremely well, which is something that like the daydreams in Reverie can't really do, because they're all trying to be done like in-engine normally. Ren had yet to be enrolled in any club, so as soon as the day's lessons had come to an end, she packed her belongings and stood to leave. A word, if I may, Miss Bright? It was a fellow classmate surrounded by a small faction of students clearly loyal to their King Bee. My God, it's Eastern Patrick. Certainly. When instinct told her this was not going to be a conversation she wanted to have, she made an effort to pretend otherwise. She would not be provoked in behaving as anything but a mature, modest young lady, who also probably can summon a scythe out of the ether, still. I've wanted to get to know you better for some time now, you see, so I was wondering if you might join me for dinner this evening. The boy, Ronald, you can never trust a Ronald, Griffith, presented a gentlemanly smile. Ren was very much used to being asked out like this, and never once did she accept. She always made some excuse to turn them down. Today would be no different. I'm ever so sorry, but I'm afraid I have something urgent to take care of after school today, some other time. This was usually enough to get them to give up, but Ron was a persistent one. Well, that won't do. I have something very important to discuss with you, and I've already booked us a table at a very fine restaurant so we can discuss in detail. Is there really no way your business can wait? Something ominous about a smile. Ren couldn't help but be curious what he was thinking. Afraid he can't. I'm so sorry. After you've gone out of your way to prepare ahead of time. Still, I could spare a little time now, so I'd be happy to talk here if that's alright. So not tonight then. With pity. Ronald's tone read one less genuine sadness and more irritation that things were not going according to plan. Well aware they'd let slip his true feelings on the matter, he quickly composed himself and smiled. Now it's better than ever, I suppose. This does concern everyone in the room, so perhaps it's all for the better said here. This Ren glanced around the room, noticing that only she, Ronald, and his lackings were all who remained. Most were likely on their way home or in their respective clubs. While some would have ordinarily been in the classroom at this hour, she was certain none wanted anything to do with Ronald and his group. He took a step towards her, then began to speak. I'm well aware, Miss Bright, that you have come here all the way from distant Liberl to be here. It's not unusual for students to transfer from afar for family reasons. Here in your case, you came to Calvard just to learn in these hallowed halls. Can't help but deeply admire your spirit and thirst for knowledge. Pure theatrics, this one. At the same time, I worry about you. Brilliant you may be, but living alone in a far-off land must be terribly lonely and a challenging affair. We all need someone to append to in our lives, and that would be especially so in your situation. He lacks critical information. So if you don't mind me saying so, Miss Bright, I believe you're in need of someone to look after you, to protect you. By God, who knows where this could go. At last he shut up, giving Ren a chance to respond. She scrutinized him closely. In short, you'd like me to join your circle of friends, correct? Ronald's smarmy smile broadened. His father was a senator in the Republic's parliament, meaning he held a significant amount of political power. His son used this to his full advantage ever since joining the academy. Ronald had used his father's name to form a faction of sorts among the students, forcefully building his reputation until he was the leading candidate for student council president in the election staged in half a month's time. His goal, Ren assumed, was to bring the hottest talk of the academy into his faction to secure his chances of victory. I think you'll find that joining us would help you feel much more secure and at home here. Or perhaps you don't yet appreciate just how much of a difference having someone like me backing you would make on the life of an exchange student. True, she mused inwardly. Being in a group of high social standing would make it easier for her to gather information. She could leverage his father's connections to build more of her own that would pay itself in dividends in the days to come. Pompous boy had no way of knowing that the actual circumstances that brought her to Aramis, but his proposal was in fact very beneficial to her. She returned to smile with a modest one of her own as she answered, "You're kind to think so much of me, but I'm afraid I have to decline." Clear, unambiguous rejection. Ronald's lips were still curled into a smile, but he could not hide the twitch in his brow, nor could his lackeys hide their shock. They had by all accounts expected her to answer the opposite. Are they not media literate in the slightest? Are you sure you won't reconsider, Miss Bright? Surely someone as brilliant as you can see why accepting my offer would be in your best interest. I fear if you don't now, you may well come to regret it. The last words were a hair slower and deliberate to intimidate her. Ren, of course, was never going to fall for it. What? You think? I'll admit it's a tempting proposal, tempting enough to inspire one to consider helping a certain someone win the student council election. Only that someone weren't you. What did you say? The sudden talk caught him completely off guard, resulting in a flare of irritation escaping him. Ren, for her part, was unruffled by the change. I imagine you don't need to explain why, but I will be, to be sure. I've been very aware that the threatening glares I always attract on the way to school every morning have been coming from all of you. They've been a constant in my life ever since just before the festival. All were flabbergasted by the statement, their silence confirming what she said to be true. She continued. You have every right to regard me with caution. I'm well aware of how much I stand out despite my best efforts. Taking potential threats under your own wing is a strategically sound move too. However, that your target was so easily able to see through your scheme shows everyone here just how inept you really are. I have better things to do than assist someone so incompetent and small-minded. The shrug and a sigh in a somewhat dramatic fashion, Ren stood before Ronald, his shoulders trembling from rage. Good day to you all. Ren gave a courteous nod of acknowledgement before leaving the room, paying no mind to the wide eyes and open slack jaws she left behind. Agate ended up getting pretty beat up from another one of Mom's crazy jobs she threw at him. No, Tito and Agate posting, no! We did get some good data out of it, but ouch. Your mom is always so funny. That night in the dormitory, Ren and Tito were engrossed in deep conversation through their laptops. It's always the same old with all of you. I'm surprised there's anything of Agate left with how often you tell me she has him nearly facing death. You two are in a rut, I know. God damn it! I can't, just shut up! All of you! Nope. I'm not reading it. I refuse. I'm not reading it. I'm making a damn stand. Peter graduated from the branch campus in Erebonia just as Rin left for Calvard, leaving them no time to spend with another in person. Wasn't ideal, of course, but from a hint of sadness came the habit of talking like this once a week so they could stay in each other's lives. They discussed anything from their new lives and environment to the fruits of their research, occasionally stumbling into a serious topical matter or two along the way. Sounds like a legal confrontation between the Verne Company and Epstein Foundation is inevitable at this point. I know, I can't believe this is really happening. Both frowned at their screens. Recent development concerning the Calvardian industrial giant Verne Company had become a key source of concern for them as of late. Oh man, Russell. It began soon after Crossville returned to normalcy after the Supreme Leader's takeover the previous year. Professor Erica Russell approached the Verne Company to propose that they join the West Sumerian Tech Union that she had been hard at work forming. And to no one's surprise, they refused. Before Erica and the rest of the engineers involved could even finish getting ready to go and change Verne's mind, something happened to make the Union the least of anyone's priorities. The independent development of a new generation of orbits and their generation's long partner in this subset of technology, the Epstein Foundation, would not be a collaborator. The latter have been key supporters of Zemurian's orbital development and the orbital technology in general since their very inception. Battle orbits were no exception to this. The Foundation had known their way around them since the very first model, drafting the incredible concept that had been used as a base ever since. Even the Reinford Company, before the Battle of Jormungand, had not thought to develop their Arcus models on their own, instead favoring to develop them in partnership with the Storied Institute. The announcement was quite simply unprecedented, and it sent shockwaves throughout the industry. The Epstein Foundation was also less than pleased about being cast aside in this manner. There were certainly legal concerns regarding who owned the patent to that technology. The greater concern was that their stable position in the industry as a whole was now becoming unstable. They initially responded by attempting to resolve this through peaceful means, so when those attempts proved fruitless, it was reported that they were preparing for what could only be described as an ugly international legal dispute. I'd say Verne has the upper hand if this ever makes it to court. Do we have courts in this world? I mean, I say that as like half a joke, but I feel like this is the first time courts have ever actually been referenced in the series. I mean, I know that's like almost certainly not actually true, but I don't know. I feel like, do they ever talk about like court cases at all in the series? I mean, like, the closest would be, like, criminals being tried, but, you know, we never actually see anything like that. I mean, Grimwood's a lawyer. I guess it's the closest confirmation that courts exist. Unlike the previous Ramda ordinance, this 6th generation is designed to set a whole new standard. It means all your old ordinance are going to be obsolete. All its main features are packed with new tech. New tech! And some new features are still being kept under wraps. Wonder what those are. What could they be trying to develop that's important enough to ruin their relationship with the Foundation? Didn't you get the memo, Rin? Calvard are the bad guys now? They're gonna be doing schemes, nefarious actions, ending the world type stuff. Erebonia they get to chill. They get to take the Calvard role of like, you know, they're like probably bad, but like they're not doing anything bad right now, so we can kind of ignore them. Well, I've heard about the government telling the Verne Company to focus more on weapons development. I have too. It sounds like they're planning to significantly revamp the military's weaponry. The official story is that they're planning on slimming the military down, but if they're pairing that with the latest in weapons development, then they're just as powerful, maybe more so. Part of the war's ceasefire agreement, Erebonia was required to downsize their military, bringing it in more in line with that of Calvard's. If the Republic were to expand their capabilities of its military, this recently forced equilibrium in superpowers would be quickly broken. I need answers too. Maybe it would be worth visiting the Verne Company headquarters in Basel at some point. I haven't learned anything about where Professor Hamilton is at the moment, right? Nothing new or concrete, at least. Sounds like she's continuing her research eastward, but I haven't heard anything more specific than that. Mom and Grandpa haven't had any luck in contacting her either. I'm not surprised since that area isn't very well connected, but it's still unfortunate. She's a lot more personable than Professor Schmidt, so having her on our side would help a lot. Tita can only laugh. Yeah, there's a lot of worrying stuff going on now about the PMCs and stuff like that. Makes you wonder if none of this would even be happening if she was still acting as an advisor for the Verne Company. The deeper into the conversation they went, the more Tita could feel her spirit sinking. The political climate in Western Zemuria was unusually stable at the moment, with its nations basking in prosperity. But she could not shake off the feeling that this peace was built over rotting wood, and that it would all come crashing down with but the slightest provocation. Well, it's not like the leader of one of the countries is probably evil or nothing. This was becoming especially true in the tech world, as it had undergone rapid growth in recent years compared to other fields, so rapid in fact that no base could possibly sustain its sudden weight without cracks beginning to form. I don't dwell too much on the worst case scenario, Tita. This piece might rest on a knife's edge, but there's still plenty we can do to preserve it. That's why I'm here right now, and that's also why you're working so hard too. Found a million problems in the world if we wanted, but pessimism isn't going to make them go away, right? The world filled Tita with the right amount of comfort she needed in that precise moment. Yeah, I guess you're right. Thanks, Ren. I don't know, sounds like, sounds like Wiseman's fucking right, man. That's the story of the games. Everything past Guy 2, Wiseman was actually right. He was a murderous piece of shit, but he was kinda right. Maybe we shouldn't have stopped him. They continued on, losing track of time as they talked well into the night. Before they knew it, the clock had struck 12. Well, it's getting really late, so I should probably be going. I'll talk to you soon, okay? It is kind of funny. Wiseman as a character is like someone I absolutely thought was so boring in Sky 2. But actually, like, the more the games are going on, the more I'm like, man, he was actually like kind of an okay-ish villain. If they like, Wiseman would have been actually like a great villain if they hadn't made him so cartoonishly evil in some regards, or in most regards. Because I do kind of like that, like, his actual plan was good in a way. Like, it's basically like Grimwood is just kind of a better version of him though, because Grimwood isn't as cartoonishly evil. He's like a little evil. Alright, good night, Tita. Night. Oh, Tita suddenly remembered something? No. No, Tita, you're not allowed to talk anymore. I don't trust the writers. They got something wrong with them. Still, and Joshua told me to ask if you're doing okay in school. Those two always worry too much. You think I wasn't talking to them, too. She couldn't help but remember her interaction with Ronald at her class, but Rin quickly drove the thought from her mind. It wasn't worth dredging up. Tell them they can rest easy. Everything's fine. Good, they wanted to let me know if you were being bullied so they could fly over and help. Rin can only sigh. Honestly, did they think I couldn't keep myself safe and a few schoolyard bullies? Actually, they said that they were more worried about what you do to them than what they do to you. No, actually, Rin, you're in a new arc. That means that you're gonna get bodied, maybe. You're gonna get embarrassed by random school children despite being, you know, canonically super strong. At her friend's silence, Tita couldn't help but burst out laughing. I worry about you too, obviously, but they're probably right. How awful of you. Even if that were to happen to me, I wouldn't do half what you're imagining. Not anymore, anyway. See, it's saying that kind of thing that makes people worry. I'm a lady now. I need the magnanimity to forgive the transgressions of others. I'm also trying to do what I can to avoid standing out too much at school. You can try, but I think that's always been a lost cause. Anyway, now I'm really going to go before I remember anything else. Say hi to Zen for me if you run into him. The cursed word. Holy shit. The one character that's maybe more forgotten than Kevin. I mean, at least Zen always had the, like, obviously I presume he's going to show up in the Calvard games. God, that would be, what if they did him so dirty? He never gets to show up. He's relegated to cameo status. Kevin's probably worse because Kevin was, like, actually a main character. Whereas Zen was, like, he was kind of forgettable even in the Sky games. So him just getting completely forgotten, aside from, like, occasional references to the fact that he exists, kind of made sense. I I'm planning to go and see him when everything calms down here, so will do. I'm meaning to go and see someone else I've been indebted to in the past. By the time the two of them had finished talking and ended the call, one day had given way to the next. Morning dawned, yet another day of school. However, just as she left her classroom in the main building at the start of lunch and went to descend the staircase, she felt someone suddenly draw near from behind her. Reflexively, she dodged out of the way, instantly drawing her scythe, bisecting them in the blink of an eye. A female student that entered her field of vision, she had lost her balance, her expression a mix of fear and surprise. She passed through the spot Ren had been moments before her momentum showed no signs of fading. If someone didn't stop her, she was going to start tumbling down the stairs. Well, accidents happen every day. Ren was quick to grab her and pull her close. Oh no. She supported the girl's weight with one arm with all the grace of someone taking part in a ballroom dance, saving her from falling. Several students happened to witness the event unfold and could not help but elicit gasps of admiration. At least you guys didn't get reamed. Or you didn't end up reading her. Noticing that the girl's eyes were still in focus, Ren gently addressed her. "You alright? You aren't hurt, are you?" Finally realizing the situation she was in, the girl whose face had become quite red quickly straightened her posture in a fluster. "I'm okay. You're Ren Bright for the next class over, aren't you? Thank you so much for helping." "You're very welcome. I'd have to caution you from losing your composure like that right next to a staircase. You have some really urgent business to take care of." The girl first frowned in response, then paused to think, then answered, "Nothing I can think of. It's weird, but even though it was probably my imagination, it felt like someone had pushed me from behind. Obviously no one here would do that, so I must have just been bumped into someone by accident." You think to rescue again before disappearing into the distance. The situation she had deemed her imagination, however, lingered in Ren's mind. If I hadn't sensed something was amiss, both of us would have fallen down the stairs. We could have been badly hurt. Really just a coincidence, or was it a deliberate action by someone who wants to hurt me? If it was the latter, he didn't have anything to support this theory, but with it came a familiar sensation. Feeling a malicious stares focusing on her from the shadows. It took surprisingly little time for suspicions to gain evidence. After finishing gym class the next day, Ren made for the classroom and began preparing for her next lesson. As she did, she immediately noticed something was amiss. All of her textbooks had been glued shut with an excessive amount of adhesive. Trying she did to open them was a lost cause to even get a single page. It was an obvious attempt to harass her. So she decided she'd harass them by summoning the spirit wolf, hitting them with the damn black hole. The culprits behind the act were equally obvious. Not far from where Ren was sitting, Ronald Griffith and his lackeys, whom she so memorably turned away 2 days prior, were stickering to themselves, their eyes mockingly focused on Ren all the while. Not even interested in hiding what they're like anymore. I'm sure at this point they want me to know who did it to intimidate me. This latest development also confirmed in her mind that they were responsible for trying to push her down the stairs the day before. What a pitiful sight they were. Because she refused to join their group, her existence was in their eyes now nothing more than a hindrance to Ronald's campaign for student council president. They would stop at nothing to either break her spirit and force her to join or shame her into lowering her popularity among the student body. It didn't matter that Ren had no interest in taking part in the election. After further inspection, the state of her textbooks, Ren's expression grew difficult to read. I think I make them usable again, but not in what little time I have left for class. The bell soon chimed to signal the start of her lesson. Ren left her textbooks out on top of her desk, making no effort to open them throughout. She doesn't need them because she's so smart. She's the smartest person who's ever smarted before. Her instructor was, of course, less than pleased about this perceived slight against them, picking her to answer a question as an attempt to chide her poor behavior. Man, I've had that happen before. Because I'm not like a note person. I never took notes, even like in college and stuff. I mean, occasionally like very minor things, but you know, I've had teachers get like mad about that, which is like, I'm listening. Keep talking, idiot. Okay? I'll need to write everything down. I'm a bad writer. I'm a better listener. That's right. Please read the next paragraph aloud for us. And his friends, but she's like memorized the entire textbook because she's so freaking smart. Ronald and his friends let out a series of pleased giggles at this, their minds delighted at the thought of a flustered Ren being told off and humiliated in front of the entire class. What transpired in reality played out very differently from their fantasies. You just said that, game? Without missing a beat, Rin did exactly as she was told, reciting the selected paragraph she'd been asked to read word for word. That's a fucking eye roll. All while her textbook remained closed. Did you memorize the entire book? That's me choking. Even the instructor could not hide their surprise. Of course, the student of Aramis Academy, I would not dare to compromise when preparing for my lessons. Rin responded with such grace that she, of course, drew in more sighs and coos of admiration from both her instructor and peers alike. I mean, at least Rin, like, the one thing I will slightly give her is that she is, like, slightly superhuman because of the Gnosis stuff, but, like, it's not a trope I like. It was only Ronald and his posse who groaned with sullen expressions. The next incident came on Rin's way to school the next morning. She entered the school gates with a horde of other students, and she was just about to step into the building when she noticed a foul smell coming from above her. Looked upwards, noticing a portion of the fencing surrounding the building's rooftop was falling directly above her. She smelled the fence. You got your fucking mind? But, I mean, at least she's superhuman. So it bothers me. It bothers me, obviously. It does bother me slightly less than, say, like, Muse's whole thing. Because at least Rin is actually not normal. So there is a slight explanation for it. I don't like that degree of competence. It just feels too, like, Mary Sue-ish. I could get out of the way easily if I wanted, but the fencing was over 2 arc in length. She could escape unharmed, but the other students around her would likely not. Summon the scythe! It was not a risk she was willing to take. Grasping the battle ornament hidden in her bag, she cried out, "Airstrike? Come on, airstrike!" A spear of wind formed in response to her incantation, flying upwards at high speeds. She carefully controlled its power so that instead of setting the fence flying, it simply cancelled out its momentum instead, allowing her to hop and gadget with ease. It's no accident. The smell makes it obvious. It was the distinct scent of a liquid extracted from a certain plant monster. One of its properties was to imitate the natural corrosion of metal, resulting in its application in certain solvents. Made the fence fall into deliberate action, the perpetrator had been trying to disguise an accident, and with Rin having been the target of several malicious acts already, the culprit was clear. Again, she could feel the presence of those familiar hateful stares pouring into her from the shadows. I mean, we're getting close to the point where Rin would actually be justified in cutting them in half. I mean, I'm not saying she should, but dropping a damn fence on someone could actually kill them. Like, that's basically attempted murder. I mean, technically, the pushing down the stairs can also be attempted murder. We don't really know what the stairs looked like, but like how steep they were. I mean, granted, even a small fall can technically kill you, depending on how you fall, but yeah, like we're getting to the point where Rin could be justified in murdering again. just saying. Whoa, that was awesome! Did you see that? Anything she can't do? Rin's quiet meditation was disrupted by a multitude of cheers and applause from all around her. As she was a performer just about to leave the stage, she gave an elegant bow in response. This will not be the last time she endured harassment from Ronald's group, but each and every time they thought they bested her, she would handle herself with exemplary skill, their efforts only serving to make her more popular. I mean, I do like the instantly casting the airstrike thing, like that's cool. And kind of makes sense, because she has way more combat experience than like anyone else her age would reasonably have, right? That one doesn't bother me that much. The "I'm so smart I memorized the entire textbook" is, I don't know. The state of affairs continued for several, because it's like being able to cast magic really well feels like an earned action, because we know that she's, you know, an accomplished magic person who's been basically doing combat for, you know, like 10 plus years at this point. The "I'm so super duper mega ultra smart" doesn't feel like an earned action. And that's why it bothers me more. He stood oppressively before her, his lackey... Oh, I think I skipped a couple lines there. Oh, I just skipped the second little sentence. State of affairs continued for several more days for a seemingly out of patience Ronald summoned Ren behind the school building after lessons were over for the day. He stood oppressively before her, his lackeys behind him with a composure he attempted to feign, before now being replaced by plain vile anger. Wait, did they not see her cast the spell super well? Let me give you straight, Ren Bright. You're an eyesore. Even the gentlemanly air he impersonated before was gone. And this is taking like a... Well, I guess it's not taking that long. It's taking longer because I keep pausing to talk about shit, which is a good sign. The fact that there's like stuff to talk about and stuff is like a sign that I'm enjoying myself. And that it's like an interesting daydream. Really, that's not a polite thing to say to your classmate. Don't try not cute innocent. I put too much of my damn time and mirror into building my position up at this academy. But who's always the center of attention instead? What? You don't own any mirror. It's not your mirror, dude. It's your dad's mirror. It's not yours, dummy. It's you. Always you. It's like you're deliberately trying to sabotage my chance of success, and that's the last thing I can afford right now. The more livid Ronald became, the more unruffled Ren was in turn. Only sabotaging yourself by setting me up to succeed over and over again. You are aware of that, aren't you? Had she not been forced to defend herself against him over and over, she would not have received nearly as much attention. This being pointed out caused Ronald to return an audible tut of frustration. Who cares about how it happened? The point is, this has gone on long enough. I'm going to have to ask you to step off the stage for a while. What do you mean? Ronald seemed to present some of his initial cool from when they first talked as he answered. Oh, I mean something very simple. You just won't come to school until the election is over. And if I refuse. To this he raised a hand. In response, his lackeys stepped forward to surround her. The boys were unusually well built for their age, showing off their hulking forms in hopes of intimidating her. Come on. I'm just saying, man. I saw the lady instantly cast the damn art to blast away something that was dropping on her head. I'm not fighting her, man. You crazy? Especially I'm not going to be like, oh, look at my muscles. It's going to blast my ass with a damn spell instantly. These guys aren't even like, it's not even like a combat school. Like it's, you know, I mean, presumably these guys don't have any combat experience. So it's not even like they're like hopped up on like, oh, we're at the military school, we're so strong. Refusing's not an option, I'm afraid. If you aren't going to oblige you willingly, we'll just make it so you can't come to school for a while. Lackeys cracked their knuckles dramatically to clarify their leader's intent. Like, the fact that you guys are trying to, like, fight with your fists means you idiots. That's not good. I think we both know that would constitute a grave violation of the school's rules. Something about her inflection caused him to mistake her commentary as showing a hint of fear, further fueling their desire to dominate the situation. No one's watching a place like this, and even if someone did happen to see my father as a politician, he can make it go away. They don't willingly choose to ignore what they saw in defense to my position, that is, in deference to my position. Everyone at this academy seems to know their place, you see. Everyone except you. Her smile then was so unpleasant that a sigh escaped her in. I would think you're the one who doesn't know your place. I don't want to be rough with him after what Tita said, but it means he taught a good hard lesson. Ronald continued on, oblivious to what was running through his apparent victim's mind. Now do as I say! Lackeys drew closer, readying to seize her. Keep it mild, but I still want this to hurt for them. Just enough to set them on the right track. I don't think Estelle or Joshua would object to that. I mean, Estelle would bash the shit out of them. But just as he was about to act... Stop this at once! A girl's shout could be heard from the direction of the school building. She was, of course, not shouting at Ren. And who are you? Ronald was visibly irritated. That the girl appeared to be visibly nervous. She continued to stand her ground. Think it's Stare Girl? I didn't mean to listen in, but I couldn't help but overhear what was happening here. Can't go through with this. What you're doing is wrong. The girl stepped forward till she was directly in front of Ren to protect her from the schoolyard bullies. As she did, the light revealed sleek, dazzling blonde hair that shimmered much like the sunshine above. Ren recognized her to be a first-year student who lived in the dormitory next to her own. They weren't close to one another. At most, they only exchanged polite greetings with one another as they passed each other in the hall. She always seemed like a quiet, polite young woman with good upbringing, however, not the type of woman whose eyes would go with resolve as she put her well-being on the line for someone else's. Rin was surprised by this, as was Ronald, though he was less than impressed. He never fathomed another student would dare to resist him. One thing he did sense was that her resistance was little more than a brave front. With excitement at the thought of stripping that front bare, he grew a sadistic smile and addressed her. Is it now? Well, how fortunate for me that I have to show you that have you to show me the error of my ways. Rin can wait. You're a first year, I presume. Going to need to give you a lesson in just how right and wrong works in our society. Upon his signal, his lackey shifted us around their new target over Rin. He began to tremble as danger closed in on her, but still she did not move. Don't you dare. This time it was Rin who spoke up. I'll give you what you want, so you don't dare touch her. But, you sure about that? She wasn't planning on that response, but Ronald was more than happy to have his win in any form. Let's away from school for a while. That's what you want, right? No, beat them up! Don't appease them! Appeasement's bad! But then the experience of studying abroad is rather tiring for me, so maybe I do need some rest. Rin's voice was gentle in an attempt to assuage the kind girl's concerns. Ronald, meanwhile, made no attempt to hide the joy he felt at victory, laughing heartily with the glee of a spoiled child. Okay, so what you do is you pretend to give in so that Girly will not have to see you murder these guys. And then, as soon as she's gone, you track them down, beat them up, make sure that they can't go to school for a few days, and then you can also, I don't know, take a vacation. Good, now everyone knows their place here. See no reason to harm either of you now that I've got what I want. Consider yourself lucky now that I've decided to let you go. Ronald turned away and made to leave, his lackeys following suit. Good day to you then. When next we meet, the school will be all mine. Then he was gone. Only the girls up behind the school building, the younger of the two looked up at her senior, concern well in her expression. I really am alright. You're very kind to worry. Rin's smile was one of genuine kindness. I mean, I guess you wouldn't necessarily want to see, like, have someone see you beat their ass, but I don't know. I think they deserved it. And I don't like them getting off. From then on, Rin did indeed stop coming to school, citing illness as the official reason behind her absence. Cringe. Rin, you just posted cringe. The students then gathered in the Academy's auditorium several days later. I mean, granted, presumably she's going to do something as well, but auditorium several days later for the long-awaited student council election. Armis Academy as a whole placed great importance in the autonomy of its students. I mean, I guess the best thing you could do is win the election, so I'm presuming that's what's going to happen. And as such, the student council exercised an unusual amount of power. Also weighed upon them a massive amount of responsibility, such as being the sole planner for the Academy's festival, a symbol of celebration of spring in the capital. This, however, also led to a position being a major status symbol even long after graduation. All this is why a large number of students put their name forward to become the student council president every year. Yet this year, a great majority of the most promising candidates dropped out under mysterious circumstances, leaving only Ronald and others associated with him on the ballot. Couldn't exactly boast about winning by default. Ronald's supporters sat in the rest area, chuckling among themselves at the whole affair. His name wasn't the only one on the ballot, but none of the others had done any certifiable campaigning, meaning his election was positively assured. Eventually, the time came for him to give his speech. It was a compelling one. He played the part of a respectable young gentleman as he delivered it, speaking with the same silver tongue he inherited well from his father. There were some moments where he failed to hide his arrogance, but as no one else had prepared a speech to give, this was not the blow to his campaign it otherwise would have been. Now, if you could turn your eyes to the screen he spoke of was the back of the auditorium. This was a rather notable feature to have in the school building, to have anywhere, and was installed several years prior to use in lectures and to display recreational films. Other nations yet to indulge in such luxuries. Yeah, you guys don't have movies. Yeah, maybe you got like mechs and, you know, flying airships and railway cannons and the internet, but you don't got moving pictures yet. They're called movies, 'cause they move. Up until then, students had used it to display photographs during their speeches, but Ronald intended to take it a step further. He wanted to share a promotional video, and not a simple makeshift one self-produced, that one might ordinarily be presented by an amateur, but rather professional work he paid a considerable amount of mira for. Its quality was genuinely impressive. His victory was written in stone, but this he knew would cement it that much more. Convinced this would serve as a perfect beginning to his ascension to the top of the social hierarchy, he started the video. Oh no. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. The musical number was playing was rousing, fitting what followed then was Ronald appearing on screen. How much mirror do you want for supporting me? I can make it worth your while. What? The video playing before them was not the one intended. Rather than an inspiration show of what he could bring to the student body, it was just a recording of him buying off one of his opponents just days before. Hush whispers of confusion spread throughout the auditorium, and the next clip played. You know what's good for you will withdraw your candidacy right now. The only thing you'll be president of is a hospital bed. Next was an equally unexpected scene of Ronald intimidating another candidate into withdrawing from the race. As it continued, Ronald realized what was going on. I still think she should have beat him up. Because like, she could do this, and she could beat him up. Because like, this is just gonna like, you know, wound his ego a little bit. But like, his ego's so high that it's unwoundable. If you break his arm, can't ignore that. For the record, we do not condone violence on this channel. Violence is bad, and you should not use it. As it continued, Ronald realized what was going on. Someone out there replaced his carefully prepared video with another. Initially, hesitant whispers exploded into loud enough murmurs that he had to raise his voice over them in an attempt to quell the situation. This is all forgery. Someone's attempting to frame me. But just at that moment, as if waiting for his cries of denial, a girl's voice resounded from the auditorium's entrance. I'm afraid it's all entirely genuine. Her voice rang out with a wonderful clarity, charming all who heard it. She ran her hand through her violet hair and flipped it back as she talked and walked slowly towards the stage. Bribing potential threats, blackmailing, threatening, even executing violence against others, and many other cases of bullying besides. You're guilty on every single count, Ronald Griffith. Before anyone could fully understand what's happening, the student was on stage and staring Ronald down. All eyes were fixed upon this elegant figure. Indeed, without any effort at all, she had the air of a protagonist with some epic tale making her long-awaited appearance. Damn it, Rin Bright, must you insist on getting in my way at every turn? He growled through a sheet of sheer anger. In contrast, the recently absent Bryn responded with brilliant composure. You're the one getting in the way. With the fair run-ins of the important election, your countless crimes have made a mockery of the whole process. No, actually, I mean, we don't know that much about Calvard, but presumably his way of doing an election is how it works here. I'm just saying, the chances of Graham Hart being elected genuinely are about, 2. 2 out of what number? I'll leave that up to your imagination. Rin then turned from Ronald to the rest of the student body as she continued to list his crimes along with the still-running video. Some elicited frowns, others sympathy, others complete silence, but by the time she was finished, all were united in a single overpowering emotion. When's lunch? Anger. It brings me no joy to say this about a fellow student, but I'm afraid it must be said. Ronald Griffith, you do not deserve to even attend this prestigious academy, much less be president of its student council. Similar censure from other students followed in rapid succession. Yeah, she's right. Stop ruining our academy. You've gone too far. Rin's accusation wasn't the only reason for their anger. The students of RMS had long loathed Ronald's oppressive behavior. Well, you guys should have given him a damn swirly. Alright? I mean, bullying's bad. Don't ever bully people, even if they deserve it. They only hadn't spoken out before because they were afraid of his father's power. Yeah, but like, just if you all give them a swirly and they say, who did this? And you say, we all did it. They can't get all of you, right? Granted, I guess that story doesn't actually end well for the people, but now that they realized he could be stopped, their anger had reached an explosive boiling point. Ronald suddenly found himself at the center of a torrent of abuse. He looked to his lackeys for support, but even they refused to meet his gaze. It then dawned on them how fragile all he thought he built was. Rage gave way to an instant deep despair, and casting a glare of pure hatred towards Rin, Ronald hurriedly sprinted out the auditorium. Only when he was completely out of sight did the air erupt with cheers of joy. Rin Bright, Rin Bright, Rin Bright. In the end, addressing the aftermath of the election took long enough that by the time she left for the gates, it was already evening. Yet, even with how late it was, instead of walking her usual route home, she stopped off the path to enter an entirely unoccupied park. How does this work? No one's going to interrupt us here, so how about you come on out? In response to her words, Ronald emerged before her for the first time since he ran away earlier in the day, with 10 or so companions in tow. He doesn't know. These men weren't his usual lackeys, but instead vicious figures with dark expressions and gaudy clothing. They were clearly not students of the academy. They don't know. They lack critical information. More than likely, they belonged to some local gang. At least this makes a bit more sense, I guess. I could see thinking that the gang could take her. You don't keep very good company outside of school now, do you? With how they're dressed up, I assume you must be off to a party or something? Gonna wipe that smug smirk right off your face for good, Rin Bright. My dazzling future in politics was guaranteed, and now you've gone and ruined everything? What am I supposed to say to my father now? That's your problem, not mine. Or are you so small a man you can't own up to the consequences of your own mistakes? Not a second passed between his outburst and the manner in which he snapped back, causing his temper to grow twice as vile. That's it, I don't care what it takes. You're going to pay for thinking you could cross me and get away with it. Have at her! Won't be any consequences of going too far. My father will see to that. The men sprang into motion upon Ronald's signal. But what followed made them doubt their eyes. She's there. She just got the damn scythe. It's like in her shoe. Ronald could not understand what just unfolded before him. His eyes relayed the information well enough, but his mind rejected it completely. A second after he ordered his new lackey to attack, Rin had produced a monstrously sized black and gold scythe from thin air. Yeah, what's the explanation for that? What's with the phase spaces for the weapons? Because I feel like they're almost acknowledging that they do exist in a phase space. It's kind of one of those things that you just like, you roll with it, but it does kind of feel funny to see them actually acknowledge that the weapons just show up out of nowhere. That in itself was beyond comprehension, but it wasn't the last thing to be so. I mean, honestly, it wouldn't be that crazy if they were to explain that, like, in lore, the orbits can create small, little, tiny pocket dimensions that you store weapons in. That doesn't seem like that crazy. But I'm pretty sure they've never actually offered an explanation, but that seems like something that if they were to say, I would buy it completely. The scene was like a cat toying with a powerless cornered mouse, except in this shocking case, Rim was the cat and the men were the mice. They surrounded her at first, and yet all it took was a single swing of her conjured weapon to cause most of them to collapse to the ground. Non-lethally, of course. In less than 10 seconds, their confidence had crumpled with their bodies. The mice made to scurry as fast as they could, but the cat gleefully gave chase. There were even moments where she let a few think they had gotten away, only to immediately close the gap between them. I mean, okay, it was only after she was bored that she would knock them unconscious like the rest. Then she would seek delight in her next hunt. I mean, I don't know if she would be... I mean, I guess in theory, even if she did kill the people here, like, he did basically tell them to kill Rin. So, if you're trying to kill someone and you die in the process, you know, you kind of get what's coming to you. But of course, she's using her giant scythe non-lethally, of course. Like heavy sacks of potatoes, the men fell one by one, until only Rin and Ronald were left. This can't be happening. The young man was still struggling to come to terms with what he just witnessed as Rin stretched her limbs like a bored child still gearing up to play. Amateurs, every last one of them, thought I could at least have a little fun. Don't you worry, then actually slaughter them. He turned her gaze from the spectacle of her own creation to Ronald. Would you be open to give me a little more entertainment, perhaps, Ronald? Ronald twitched in fear at the mention of his name. In this moment, she was now nothing more than a beast in human skin. Stay away from me. My father's in Parliament. You know, I was trying to think of me and you'll regret it. Her response was an expression of pure pity before tossing what appeared to be a magazine at his feet. It's one of today's tabloids. You might find its contents relevant. First, he was baffled by this shift, but the second he peeked at the cover, his face went pale. Representative Griffiths suspected of bribery in connection to organized crime? Read the headline in giant punchy letters? Does that mean he gets promoted? There's a whole special feature on your dearest daddy, complete with evidence. Mentions the CID are going to be conducting an investigation as well, so this may be the last day you can say he's in Parliament. My condolences. No. Okay, I like that. I like that they took it a step further than just ruining his student council. So visceral was his shock at the news that the simple words was all he could muster. Even then, Rim wasn't finished. And this is another thing that it doesn't bother me as much as 3 doctorates at the age of 8 or whatever. Because the idea that Rin is super skilled in, what's the word? Espionage. Yeah, I buy that. It's an earned power because she spent a bunch of time presumably doing that stuff for Ouroboros. Now that he's been removed from the equation, I ask again, would you be open to give me a little more entertainment? She edged closer and closer, scythe in hand and a sadistic smile lacing her lips. Ronald tried to retreat in fear before tripping over a rock and falling helplessly on his backside. All he could do was watch her, as though she were the Grim Reaper, tears and snot streaming down his face. Be a doll and play with me, and then you'll understand why they used to call me the Angel of Slaughter. She raised her scythe above her head and ready to swing it downward before realizing when she said that. Oops, a grown woman shouldn't play with dolls, though, should she? And here I thought I could do better to control my childish glee. She covered her mouth with her free hand, blushing with feminine modesty at her slip-up. None of this was behavior befitting a proper lady that she wanted to reflect. After composing herself, she turned her attention back to her prey, only to see he was already unconscious. Finished? I showed at the park a calm young man called out to her. I certainly am. Ren met eyes with a brown-skinned young man leaning covertly against one of the trees. Safe to assume he had witnessed the entire affair unfold. Brown skin. We don't know him. He glanced inside the park for a brief moment before speaking with slight but genuine admiration. You really are something. In what way? In every way. Even if I was more struck by the hacking abilities of the famous Kitty than the combat prowess of the infamous Angel of Slaughter. It's hard to believe you managed to find dirt in his bigwig dag that easily. Ren's response is a matter of fact, showing no sign his praise had gone to her head. Most people just aren't cautious about cybersecurity as they ought to be. I understand with how new most are to it. Of course, it isn't nearly as easy as this was when you're dealing with leading corporations and politicians at the top of the food chain. May I saw you tried before? Maybe I have. Ren's smile was both cryptic and daring. I'm more impressed with you. You were quick to write a piece that's scathing while also finding me exactly the proof I needed. Glad Grace introduced us? Just doing my job. The man's name was Dingo, and he was a professional reporter for a tabloid. Oh, okay. He was extremely capable of his job, very well connected, and held a reputation for never shying away from danger. So he's the new reporter guy? You always gotta have a reporter guy. After being introduced to one another by Grace Lynn, he and Ren made a deal with one another just a few days prior. Terms were simple. Dingo would provide Ren with proof of Ronald's misdemeanors, and Ren would use her hacking abilities to provide evidence of his father's crimes. Both are now reaping the rewards of one another's success. I'll admit, I did get some help from a friend who was none too pleased about being asked to look into a scummy politician's equally scummy son, but he pulled through. You have all kinds of connections, don't you? I guess that's Yona. She did sense someone other than Dingo was acting on her behalf when she was off school, but she wasn't sure who that someone was, or because it was Ren who was saying she got help, right? I believe that was Ren's line, and I can't think of anyone other than Yona that she knows is also like a hacker dude. I mean, I don't think they really know each other that well, but they've at least met. At the very least, she could call it Tio, and Tio could tell him to do it. You know, I'm surprised you didn't meet any resistance in running that story. It would show how big a fan the government was of Griffith. They left him alone because he didn't actually oppose the current president's party, but from the CID's perspective, this chance to take him down was about as good as it was going to get. That's like something Miss Taito Master over there would do. I can't say I like the feeling of being used by her, but so is she still a thing? Because, you know, I know they had that whole thing where they established that she's like leading the intelligence division, but that was under Rocksmith. And didn't they say that the new president has like his own CID, but I guess she's still a part of it? Because the whole idea was that she was going to be creating a division that was directly under Rocksmith in particular. So you would kind of think that the new president would get rid of her. But I guess she hung around, stuck around. I'm going to be honest, I do not remember her name. Kalika, that's it. I remembered. I just had to not think about it. It's one of those things where like you're trying to think of her name, or like someone's name, you'll never get it, but as soon as you stop thinking about it, then it pops into your head. There's a word for that. Is that Jame's Fu? Or is Jame's Fu something else? I think it's Jame's Fu. When you're trying to think of something, but when you stop thinking of it, you're allowed to think of it again. Dingo that made a curious observation. I have to wonder why you went to such lengths to get rid of a small fry like him. He really bother you that much? Ben glanced briefly at Ronald, still collapsed on the ground at the park, before shrugging her shoulders dismissively. Not in the least. I didn't intend for this to go as far as it did either. Only way to teach him enough of a lesson so he'd leave me alone, but it was then the younger student who tried to save her came to mind. I think the students deserve a much better student council president than him. He then let out a titter that was most refined. Unexpected. The allegations led Ronald's father to resign from Parliament while he resigned from Armis Academy. Yeah, but he's still rich. The group of it's not so bad. Now you can just be rich passively and not have to do any work. The group of students who exerted power over the student body with his backing vanished overnight, as a result bidding peace to return to the grounds for the first time in too long. One thing, however, came about from this that Ren had not expected in the least. Here are all the documents related to next month's budget. Student Council's new president accepted the documents, and the blonde-haired first year in charge of general affairs perusing them straight away. I mean, I feel like this was a given. After Ronald dashed from the auditorium on her day of election, most of those in the group who put down their name dropped out in a timely fashion. Voting still took place even then, but once all was said and done, nearly 70% of the votes cast were disqualified. This is because they're all in favor of someone who had never put her name on the ballot, Ren Bright. Armis Academy was known for how little its staff interfered in the many liberties it gave its students, but this time the staff was clearly concerned that dissatisfaction with Ronald was going to present dire problems in the future. Teachers then chose to directly negotiate with Ren, and in the face of such a fervent demand, she reluctantly accepted the position of Student Council President. None of her duties posed a challenge to her, but by accepting it, she had completely and utterly failed her initial goal of avoiding attention. When he saw the Thor's Branch campus's first Student Council President felt when he was elected, even I couldn't believe when Tita told me. Alright, it is what it is, I suppose. I'll just have to make use of this best I can. I mean, they both kind of have scythes. It's fitting. Sunlight beamed into the student council room. The blonde-haired girl and two of her friends struggled with the new workload they were adjusting to. As Ren sat there, ears open to random talk and the occasional grumble, a thought crossed her mind. She had no end of real-world worries, the problems arising from rapid technological development, the society's next move, the ominous winds of change blustering over Calvard, the heat death of the universe. But despite all those, she wanted to enjoy her simple time here while she could. Let's see if we get this work done so we can celebrate the tea party, The arrival of a spring was now a distant memory, even if summer had yet to come. There was nothing particularly spectacular about this time. It was just another ordinary, beautifully bright afternoon. That was a lot of fun. My occasional annoyment at Ren being the superhero she is aside, just all around fun, quite enjoyable. There's another one. Okay. Oh shit. I don't know how I'm gonna do this, because this shit's like too long. I don't really want to do one per... I mean, this one was an hour long. I guess these are going to be multiple videos then. Like, we might just do one per. Like, I'm going to have to, like, redo this shit then. So what I guess we'll do is one video will be the talking to NPCs plus Eastern Marine. This will be its own video. And then this one, whatever it is as well. I gotta take a damn break though. I mean, that was fun. I enjoyed it. That was an hour of reading straight. I really like these though, overall. I mean, basically, if they just hadn't have had Reen get completely punked, I would be... Because, I mean, the other one's really good. It's really just the Reen getting completely and totally punked that rubs me the wrong way. Like, not even... Because it's, like, not even like they're like, oh, someone's as strong as Reen or anything like that. It's like, nah, they're clearly way better and cooler and so much cooler than Reen, who's, like, a scrub now. Alrighty, so... But yeah, we'll, I guess, call it here, since this is going to be its own thing. And then, we'll do that in its own video? I don't know. Because I don't really, because if we do all these in one video, it's going to be like 3 hours long. And it's like, the finale's already going to be like 3.5 hours long, I think, just because of all the combat. I mean, it's not going to be that long for like most people, because you're going to see 2 hours of combat. You're going to scroll through. You're going to click past all that shit, and then you're going to watch, you know, the short little ending. But I know what happens. I see the viewership retention stats, but it's okay. The combat's there for me mainly. Yeah. I'm bye now. See ya. Or not, because there's also a chance that if the third daydream there is really short, that we just tack it on to the end of this. I'm just going to assume that it's approximately at least 30 to 40 minutes long. Because that one was only made so much longer because I stopped to talk a lot. It was probably only like 40 minutes long normally. Or even shorter if you're not, you know, it's probably like 25 minutes if you're reading it normally. Like if you're just, you know, reading it to yourself, playing the game, and you're not reading everything out loud. Because reading everything out loud makes everything take about twice as long. And then also when you're pausing to commentate on things a lot, it takes even longer. But alrighty. Goodbye. For really reals this time. Zoom in Lloyd isn't real. Zoom in Lloyd can't hurt you.